I want to first thank all of you who have chosen to be here this day, all of those of you who have chosen to be here online with us. Thank you. Thank you for being here. I want to anchor this morning with a poem from Hafiz, or Hafez, depending on what part of the world you may be from. He writes, "I sometimes forget that I was created for joy. My mind is too busy, my heart is too heavy for me to remember that I have been called to dance the sacred dance for life. I was created to smile, to love, to be lifted up, and to lift others up. O sacred one, untangle my feet from all that ensnares. Free my soul that we might dance, and that our dancing might be contagious." That our dancing might be contagious. Our dancing, our joy, our presence, our love, that might be contagious. Earlier this week, I heard someone say that with this new Delta variant, they were feeling like they had lost their footing. You know, right now, for many folks, that's kind of the primary thought, right? To that, I want to thank all of you who are here in your masks safely, and those of you who are in the back there, so much love to you. This is what it means to care for each other. And this is what it means to be present for each other. This person that I was speaking with shared that they felt as though our country with this Delta variant had gone back on the merry-go-round. You understand? And this person was seeking some sort of touchstone, and I really get that. You know, in addition, I have to name it, the current fires that are burning in California and Hurricane Ida that is making landfall this morning in Louisiana. And so that you all know, our beloved longtime friend and minister, I reached out to her this morning, Reverend Larry Heil. She is safe and she is caring for herself. I wanted to send that message to you, and I let her know that we are sending our love to her. All that is happening in the world, in Afghanistan, we are being called to ground ourselves, to really ground ourselves, to be present, to firmly reestablish our connection to our own divinity and to the divinity of humankind. And this will support not only ourselves, but all of those around us. This will ripple out. So today is really about remembering who we truly are, ourselves, our highest truth, remembering that we are here by divine appointment, remembering that we are here to be awake, and to remember that despite it all, love wins. And we get to live a life that positively contributes to the world. Are you with me? All right. So my talk today is called There I Am. And this happens to be a very special and a very, very sacred phrase for me personally. There I am. It's a personal mantra of mine that was given to me in a moment of profound grace. And I have used the mantra, there I am, off and on for decades. And given the merry-go-round-esque energy that we are currently navigating in our world, I have recently returned to it. And I'm very excited to share it with you, but more about that specifically in a bit. I always like to begin at the beginning. So, for a brief moment, just think about what you loved the most when you were a young child. What you loved doing the most. Think back to when you were 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Despite any chaos that may have been occurring in your household or your childhood for the purposes of this. And you know, that's different for everyone. But in the sacredness and the safety of this space, for the purpose of this exercise right now, just focus on what it was that you loved the most. Maybe it was a couple of things. What activities did you love the most? Maybe, was it a form of art or sports or an activity that involved some kind of movement? I used to sit, we had a tree in our front yard, and I used to climb, and it was my favorite spot. I used to sit up there for hours and just contemplate the world. Maybe for you, it was being in quiet, in solitude. Or maybe it was being very social, or it was in the classroom. Maybe that's where you were lit up by learning new things. Whatever it was for you, just think back to the activities that made your particular unique heart sing. Do you have it? Or them? Okay. Even if it's just a sense memory for you now, which is, totally fine, just think about that time in your life before society may have ushered in some self-doubt or unintentionally bumped up against or bruised your sweet and tender heart. Think about before that time, when the joy of spirit within you was the clearest directive that you heard. That is the essence that I'm talking about. Can you feel it? Because that, my friends, that is, there you are. There you are. There you are. We had so much enthusiasm when we were young, didn't we? And if you can't remember your enthusiasm, just notice the enthusiasm of young children. And if you don't have any currently in your life, listen to them play on the playground. Or as you walk past a park, or even, on our playground, listen to them. The word enthusiasm is derived from the Greek adjective entheos, which means having God within. Enthusiasm, entheos, having God, or spirit or source, whatever word you like, within you. So whatever that source of enthusiasm was for you, that very important aspect of your soul is a very important aspect of your soul's essence and of why you are here. It's a touchstone. It is the ground of joy that lives within you. Now we grow, we miss, but that essential intrinsic part of your soul is a divine imprint. It is a glorious framework that midwifed you into being your unique self. Hasidic Rabbi Dov Ber wrote, "Each person consists of a song of existence, the one by which our innermost being was created and defined." Now, if you were happiest, say, creating art as a kid or playing drums or playing basketball, and you don't happen to make your living as an artist or a rock star or an athlete, that's just how it worked out. Our opportunity is to not take that personally or be hard on ourselves about that, right? Because it doesn't take away from the importance of that aspect of our essence. And it is so sad to me when I see, or hear about people giving up on doing what makes their soul soar just because they don't happen to make a living at it. That's heartbreaking. That's the Western perfectionist thinking that defeats the soul and steals our joy. And during this time, it is so important that we remember our soul's call into this world. Beloveds, we did not come here to lose that essence. We came here to live it and to share that enthusiasm, to share God within us with the world. That which brought you joy when you were 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 will bring you joy now if you give it a chance. It's just the grown-up version, In the Four Quartets, T.S. Eliot wrote, "We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and to know the place for the first time." To know the place for the first time. It's as if our younger self beckons us from another lifetime almost to remember the truth, the highest truth of who we truly are. So if you're feeling a bit like you are on rocky ground, or feeling lost or sad or worried or bored or angry, go back, my friends. Go back to that inner light that started you on your journey in this life. Return to that imprint that brought you joy as a child. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you don't remember, how to do that thing. Or, maybe the thought of picking that thing up, whatever it is, maybe it makes you, giggle or feel silly. Or maybe even emotional. Maybe for some of you, it might take courage to pick that thing up again. But in returning to your earliest joy, I am telling you, you will remember and find your solid footing. You will remember your soul's essence, and it will bring you joy now. Another very powerful touchstone that we have that grounds us in who we are is actually each other. So we have that which grounded us when we were young children, and we have each other. When I was a kid, especially in my teen years, my namesake, my grandmother Eileen, I'm Shannon Eileen, had an enormous influence on me. I was so blessed to have her in my life. She was a Libra, like I am. She did Irish dancing. She was very interested in that. She would be turning 112 this year if she were still here on this side of life. And like so many in her generation, she lived through and overcame so much. She was the strongest woman I had ever met and have ever met. She was my hero, she still is. And Grams was definitely my first mentor. She was formidable, she was powerful, she was a strong Irish woman who could sing like no one I have ever heard since. We would all sit around after family dinners and we would listen to her sing all the Irish songs from the old country. And then she would make all of us learn peace. It was a requirement and still is. Thank you, Mom. I would sit around that table and I would watch her in absolute awe. Her rendition of When Irish Eyes Are Smiling is legendary in our family. And my God, that woman had good funny. She had a laugh like no one. It was extraordinary. It changed the not only the room we were in, but like several rooms away, it changed. And during my time in adolescence, when I was filled with angst and with loneliness and trying to find and trying to remember my own footing, she reminded me of who I was. I remember at 15 seeing my possibility in her. She was so carefree. She was so full of life. When I looked into her eyes, I saw my own eyes. And when she laughed, it reminded me that I could let go and I could be free. I felt my own joy increase when I was in her presence. Do any of you have a person like that in your life or have had? Your joy increases when you're just merely in their presence. And she always jokingly mirrored to me in the way that only an Irish grandmother can, to not take it all so seriously. She encouraged me to come out of my own shell. She reminded me that I was actually quite strong during a time in my life when I didn't feel strong. I worshiped her, I still do, and she's very much with me all of the time. And I was incredibly blessed to have her in my life until I was well into my 20s. And towards the end of her life, my parents lovingly cared for her in their home. and she had a hospital bed in one of our bedrooms. And one night I was visiting, and by this time, at this stage in her journey, she was heavily medicated for pain most of the time. And I would go to her room, and I would hold her hand, and I would just sit with her. And, she was so quiet in those last days. And please hear me, my Grams was never quiet, ever. So her retreating into that natural preparation for her transition was hard on all of us, naturally. We knew her soul was getting ready to move to the other side of life and pass through the thin veil, and it was a very heavy time. And one night I went into her room, and I was sitting with her, and I took her hand in mine. And I was telling her how much I loved her. And I wasn't sure if she could hear me at all. And if you've ever sat with the dying, you will recognize what I am about to share with you. This particular night, out of the blue, in a nanosecond, it was as if she came out of her fog, and her eyes, she was laying down, her eyes opened up, and she squeezed my hand, and she looked up, and it was as if she was seeing angels in that moment. And then the next thing she did, she began to sing. And of all the songs, she sang When Irish Eyes Are Smiling. And I remember sitting there holding her hand, and tears were streaming down my face. I couldn't believe it. And I began to sing with her. And it was extraordinary. And in that moment, I felt the angel. And she turned right to me, and she looked right in my eyes, as if she were speaking to the depth of my being. And she said, "There I am. There I am. There I am." And it was not long after that she made her transition. One of the greatest gifts and opportunities for inner healing and alignment we have is to see ourselves in each other. Do you know what I'm saying? Moments of recognition of our shared humanity, of our connection, and the understanding that we are truly all God's stuff, that we remember that we are never alone in this journey, that despite our differences, think right now, political differences, religious differences, despite our differences, just as we were children playing in the sandbox together, we are more alike in our shared humanity than not. There I am, there I am, there I am, there I am. Not just here in our community of like-minded people, that's easy. Everywhere, there I am. This is especially important to remember right now during this time in human history. We are not only each other's keeper as spiritual beings having this human experience, we are of each other. We are of each other, and it is in the remembrance of this that we are strengthened and we are fortified, and we feel the same ground of all being, the same divine breath of life. All human beings are 99.9% identical in our genetic makeup. There is so much grace in that fact. And I want to invite you, my friends, into a spiritual practice this week of using that mantra that was given to me by my grandmother. I invite you to use that mantra, there I am. The next time you witness someone being vulnerable in any way, when they share their heart, or when they apologize, or when they say, I love you, or when they share their dreams, or when they tell you what they are afraid of, say to yourself, there I am. Yep. I'm in that moment too. There I am. When your partner, your spouse, parent, child, friend, neighbor, stranger has the courage to be vulnerable in any way, say to yourself, there I am. When they are joyous, say to yourself, there I am, especially if you're not. When they're angry, Say to yourself, there I am too. There I am too. When they are afraid, or when they are acting courageous, or when they are closed off, or when the communication is really, really difficult about fill in the blank, I invite you to say, there I am. There I am. Ah, yes, there I am. This softens our edges and steadies our breath. In engaging in this practice, it creates what Osheta Moore calls a shalom space. I love that. A shalom space, which means a space. Can you feel the shalom space? Let's bring in more peace, yes? There I am this week. Just try it. Just try it. Just see what happens. On August 28th, 1963, 58 years ago yesterday, it was the anniversary of the March on Washington, where Dr. Martin Luther King gave his I Have a Dream speech. As a kind of a cool aside, for those of you who may not know, my dad was actually there. He was very, very close to Dr. King when he gave that speech and witnessed that seminal piece of American history. Pretty cool, Pops. That's pretty cool. But as it happens, the gentleman who spoke just after Mahalia Jackson sang and right before Dr. King spoke was one of the 10 founders of the March on Washington. He was a rabbi named Joachim Prinz. He was the rabbi of the Jewish community in Berlin under Hitler's regime. And he escaped to the United States. And his speech is also quite extraordinary. I invite you to look that up if you are a person who enjoys history-type things. He and Dr. King actually worked very closely together during the Civil Rights Movement. In fact, Dr. King spoke at his synagogue twice in New Jersey, which is where he moved to. And Rabbi Prinz took his firsthand experience of authoritarianism in Nazi Germany and used it to teach Americans about its dangers. And he spent his life working for and in service of human rights. The rabbi said, neighbor is not a geographical term. It is a moral concept. Neighbor is not a geographical term. It is a moral concept. Now, last week I talked about the difference between sympathy and compassion. Do you remember that? Sympathy is feeling sorry for someone, and compassion is feeling with someone. And there is a reason that we have been so moved by what is happening in Afghanistan, because we recognize ourselves in the people trying to get out of Afghanistan. We recognize ourselves in the brave and heroic service people risking their own lives to continue trying to get them out. We recognize ourselves in the families grieving for their loved ones who were killed there at the Kabul airport this week. God bless them. We see ourselves in the people, in the women, in the girls who will not make it out. My friends, our compassion has been activated. Our compassion has been activated, and that is a good thing. If we weren't feeling what we are feeling collectively right now, it would be very concerning, right? But we are evolutionarily, on a spiritual level, moving to another meme of consciousness where we can't not feel the pain of someone else. We are moving from the place of sympathy to the place of lived compassion. So my friends, this is a tangible sign of the love that lives within us and the remembrance, the lived remembrance that we are experiencing right now on the planet. For many people, this is new, the connection to all people everywhere. And it's been taught, this concept has been taught throughout all the great faith traditions and in metaphysics, that on some level, because we are all connected, what impacts you impacts me. And what impacts our sisters, brothers, and siblings everywhere impacts us right here. And we are here. We have chosen to be here at this time to do something about that which negatively impacts others, because we are feeling it to that extent. Do you get what I'm saying? Can you feel that? Can you feel this at home? Do you understand? I remember the 80s. Nobody cared. Come on. No, a lot of people did. But do you know what I'm saying? To this level, in the 90s, and even the aughts, we're moving in, thank God, to this new place where we are feeling with. In the Christian Bible or New Testament, it is written that Jesus said, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these siblings of mine, you did for me." This is such a profoundly meaningful and universal passage, whatever you consider your faith to be. Because from a new thought perspective, this means that what we do for each other, we do for God, Spirit, Source, love within each other. When we are acting from a place of compassion, hear me when I tell you, we are doing that for Spirit, on behalf of Spirit. We have moved from the place of ego and what's in it for me to the place of I am in service of Spirit here on this planet at this time. When we lead with compassion, when we lead with the truth of there I am, oh yes, there I am, good, bad, ugly. When we lead with there I am, no matter how difficult or challenging the other person may be, when we lead with that, when we lead with it is my obligation to care for my neighbor, my moral obligation to care for my neighbor, no matter what, we are living our life in God, in Spirit, and in alignment with truth. Amen? Amen. Yes. So, with that, I want to take a moment and I want to update you and I want to let you know that we have been very closely following what is happening in Afghanistan and the Afghan refugee situation, and have made contact with our local refugee resettlement organizations. I'm happy to share with you. And we will be making an announcement this week, so watch for your emails. And if you are not yet signed up, please go online and sign up for our emails. About what is ours to do, to lead with compassion in the way that I've been talking about today. And what I can let you know today is that one of the things that we are going to be doing is we are going to be participating in what is called a Restart Kit program. And for those of you who are not familiar with a Restart Kit program, refugees arrive in the United States with little more than the clothes on their back, as they arrive anywhere in the world. And we have an opportunity to support these families with what they need in order to begin their new lives here. And we will begin doing this particular aspect, and there will be more things, but this particular aspect as a community here in Oregon. And for those of you online, we will provide for you in your communities what you can do to help provide Restart kits for the programs that are being started where you live, wherever it is in here in the United States or in the world. These are worldwide programs. And again, this is only part of one of the ways that we can lead with compassion, but I want to let you know that we are on it and stay tuned. So look for that email update this week. So just to recap for you, we ground ourselves by returning to that which brought us joy when we were young children, by consciously allowing ourselves to recognize and see ourselves in others, and also by keeping our compassion activated and moving into the place of service. That is the third place, the place of service. When we are in service, it is a grounding experience because we are always in service to Spirit, to the divine as we support others